The discourse around Arch Manning as an NFL prospect is in full swing immediately after the 2026 NFL draft. And with all the hype around him, I can't say I blame anybody. The 2027 draft class is loaded with talent, but the hype is taken up a notch with a member of the NFL's most legendary family of quarterbacks in the Mannings likely to go pro after next season. But Arch's time in Texas has been a roller coaster. After starting his college career spending most of the time sitting behind Quinn Ewers, expectations were high for Arch in his first season as the full-time against Ohio State. That, plus the early season struggles, combined with the team's failure to reach the college football playoff, had plenty of people quickly dismissing him as a viable future NFL quarterback. But what if I told you we actually started to see a much better version of Arch in the second half of the season? Over his final 6 games, Arch threw for over 1,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, and just a pair of interceptions while running in another 5 touchdowns. And over that 6-game span, his receivers still had trouble catching the ball, dropping 16 passes. There's so much noise right now around Arch, so instead of diving into the discourse about his numbers, what talking heads are saying, the lack of accolades, the vibes, we're actually just going to dive into the film of a few games from the second half of last season to show you some of the good and bad of what Arch Manning is right now and what he can become in today's episode of Best Available. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube if you're not already, and give us a follow on socials at BestAvailableYT. Thank you so much to our members who continue to support the channel. If you'd also like to support us, consider becoming one. I'll leave details to that in the episode description. You will get full access to my big board as it's being built. I am currently just putting it together, but as we have a few names on there with full notes, I will release it. But you'll get live updates on all of my rankings, all of my notes as they're being filled out. So that's a great way to consider supporting the channel. Again, details to that episode description, but let's go ahead and dive into this Arch tape because we've got a ton of plays to go over. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. When I started this video, I knew that Arch had been, a lot better in the second half of the season, but I started with the Vanderbilt game. And just for full context on this, it did not start great. Mechanics are all over the place. He's wildly inaccurate. And I started being like, oh my gosh, did I make a mistake putting together this video? And don't worry, we will get to some of the deficiencies in Arch's game right now and talk about some of those mechanical issues in a later game. But I wanted to start with some positives because it did really feel like Arch quickly settled down in this game and started throwing with anticipation and rhythm. And a little bit more mechanically sound, so I appreciated that. And there's nothing too special about this first one, but what I appreciate is just the calmness and timing, being calm but urgent. And it's a weird dichotomy, right? But like, you want to stay composed in the pocket, you want to go through your reads, but you do need some kind of tempo there, right? And I think Arch, this is really simple play, but initially scanning this window, seeing the zone drop, this might be an issue with his tight end. He goes, this is probably not going to be a viable pass. I'm going to look here. I'm not seeing much of a throwing window here. We have the space, but we don't have any routes going this way at the moment. And we've got this linebacker sitting on what looks like a route from our slot receiver. And so Arch feels that. He's like, all right, I don't like that either. And then he just lets it out. Quick hitch. Let the pass catcher do their things. But if you just watch it all one simple flow, just how comfortable he is at the top of his drop, being like, all right, I need to step up and get ready to throw this somewhere. And it's not the sexiest play. We're not starting with something just truly mind-blowing, but I appreciated the rhythm and cadence after how ugly it looked early in the game. Just be like, all right, let's just settle down. Let's just go through a quick progression, play with that tempo, hit the back of our drop, and just get that ball out. Another thing about playing quarterback, especially at the NFL level, you got to be able to throw with anticipation, right? And I appreciate the anticipation here from Arch. We're just going to run this. We motion out this wide receiver. It's going to run a deep comeback, okay? So what we want to do ideally to maximize that separation, as soon as he gets to that top of the drop and starts breaking here, we want to make sure that we're throwing that ball, or at least getting ready to throw that ball. And what I appreciate here with Arch, you see he's hit the back of his drop. He's playing it on that back foot. He's stepping up. And you can see he's gearing up to release that ball. Hand is off the ball as he's breaking down and gearing down. It's exactly what we want with anticipation. You can see good enough zip. It gets there with all one fluid motion. I just appreciate that he's able to throw with that kind of anticipation. Maybe you could say theoretically he could throw it even better anticipation, but for a guy that looked, I didn't want to show it because it was just going to be a lot of ugly to start the video, but for how rough it started, I just love that he started throwing much more in rhythm and with timing and very quickly settled down in a game against, at the time, a top 10 opponent. one of the traits I feel very, very confident that Arch is going to translate to the NFL level and gives him, a leg up on a lot of quarterback prospects is his composure in the pocket. You've probably seen a lot about him being a plus athlete, which he absolutely is. He can be a real runner, but he doesn't rely on his athletic ability in the pocket as much as I would expect from a guy that, still has a lot to work on mechanically as a quarterback. And this is a great example of that. We're going to get free A-gap pressure, and I got to give a shout out to this running back. This is just some phenomenal blitz picking up right there. I would like the head to his side. That looks a little dangerous, but the effort there to just stonewall that pass rusher, keep your feet and still do that. He needs a shout out. I love a running back that's willing to, put his body on the line for his quarterback like that. But from here, this is where I'm really impressed with Arch. That is legitimate pressure in your lap still. And, there's a lot going on. And what I love is he has every excuse to just try and take off here and just use his athleticism. But he's just kind of staying in the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield. Because we're holding this this defender with this tight end, we've got this kind of throwing window in the middle of the field. And a lot of the NFL, unless you're Jalen Hurts or Russell Wilson, you got to be able to throw in the middle of the field. He feels that throwing window despite the pressure in the A gap, just stays in there and delivers a nice strike. I love the composure. It's something we'll see a couple times on today's video. But that's the NFL stuff that I love. And I wish he'd step into that throw a little bit more, just a little bit more. But overall, the composure is a huge trait I really, really care about in my quarterbacks. And the fact that he can do that in just his first year as a full-time starter, really like that. Middle of the field throws are tough, understanding those throwing windows. I think this is an excellent play. We got another example of that pocket presence, this time with pressure coming around the outside. So let's get this rolling. So as we roll this, he's, faking the swing screen, or at least with his eyes, to try and hold defenders. And we're going to have some kind of deep dig coming across the middle of the field here. We're going to lose some pressure on the outside. So, we're winning with speed and bend. It's a hell of a rush rep against, a top tackle prospect. But we're feeling that pressure. What I love here, instead of panicking, dropping the eyes from Arch, he feels that pressure coming around. What does he do? His posture stays stays confident, and he's just stepping up in this pocket like an NFL quarterback should. And I know that just sounds very cliche, but I can't tell you how many quarterback prospects I watch the second they feel pressure, even at the NFL level, where they just drop their eyes and try to scramble around. He's just stepping up in that pocket, trusting that his step-up's giving him enough time, and then he's stepping into this throw. That throwing window is tight. It might be a drop. I think he should catch this. Maybe I'm being a little harsh, but in my opinion, that should be a catchable ball. It's a tough throwing window regardless, and I know it's a lot of zip on that, a lot of velocity, which I am impressed that he has that kind of arm. I was hoping for that watching this film. I would just like to see a little bit more. I got to give Arch credit for just feeling that speed rush right around the edge, just stepping up, keeping those eyes downfield, and stepping in. I think that's a hell of a throw. Even if it's not caught, and maybe you could nitpick and say maybe it's a little off target, but I think, an NFL wide receiver, typically, bigger bodied X receivers running those deep digs, they should be able to come away with that. I really go back and forth a lot with Arch's mechanics because it looks so funky. It's so labored. His lower body, I think, needs a lot of work as far as tying his hips and pointing his feet towards the target, his feet and shoulders, and stepping into the throws. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in this video. But as far as the release, it's funky. And Mendoza had a funky release, and he's the number 1 overall pick. But what I will give Arch credit for how weird his release is it gets him out of some tough situations. Here we've got an unblocked defender coming, opposite side of this handoff, so he's not really paying attention to it. But because he's able to get that ball out so quickly, he's just now holding the ball. This guy's right in his face. And a quarterback with a more elongated release, and hey, I'm a Packers fan, Jordan Love, goofy, funky release. Arch has a quick enough one that he can get that out when under duress, which I think is a really nice kind of get out of jail free card in situations like this, where you can see he's dead to rights here, but just because he can get that ball out so quickly, it's a touchdown. I'm still trying to get used to it because it's just so funky compared to a lot of the quarterbacks I watch. But there are times where it absolutely does get him out of trouble. We've got a third and medium here, and as a quarterback at the NFL level, you have to be able to throw an out route with enough velocity. If you have a weak arm and you're trying to throw that out route, it's where you see a lot of pick sixes. A lot of guys can jump these. So you not only have the zip, but you have to have the placement. You got to lead that receiver on that out route. When I'm saying an out route, typically a 5-yard can be a speed out. can be, or speed out more rounded, can be a stick cut out. But regardless of what kind of out we're running, I imagine in this case a speed out, you just want to make sure that you lead that receiver. You don't want to underthrow this either with velocity or placement, because that's how you get it jumped. And in this situation, this is a nice job just throwing this. So we know we've got the defender in the hip pocket, a more explosive receiver, corner, linebacker, defender in general. There's always a threat to jump the out route. And so for Arch, we got to make sure we place this perfectly. And that's about as perfect of placement you get. You led the receiver, got him in stride, got him just a yard past the sticks. It's exactly what we needed on third down. And I'll show the end zone angle too, so you can see that placement a little better. So just let's get it rolling. No nonsense. Hits the back of the drop, steps in, delivers it. That's exactly where we need it. Yeah, I'm trying to show you just some subtle plays too, but these are NFL level throws. So it may not seem like a much. I know we're going through so many plays, but that's important, man. Third and median, sometimes you just got to be able to hit an out route, and I like the ball placement there. One of the traits I'm very excited about with Arch is his deep ball. It's not always there, but for the most part, I like the placement. Too many college quarterbacks I watch, they throw the deep ball, and it's just like trying to hope the receiver can adjust to it, back shoulder it, really work back or draw a penalty. But Arch is one of those quarterbacks that when he's throwing deep, he can lead to the receiver so they can hit it in full stride and get underneath it instead of having to decelerate. And again, that's not saying every deep shot he takes, but when it flashes and it's on, it is on. And what I love here is the decision to do it. So we've got what looks like man look. We might be getting a cover one because of this single high safety look. The safety is actually going to blitz from depth. And as soon as Arch realizes that, he's going to be like, oh, I got an island one-on-one bottom of the screen. So as we roll this, we got that motion. He feels that safety coming at the snap. So he's like, okay, bet. So I do have one-on-one here. And what I love is the confidence to throw this knowing like, hey, he's not even winning right now. Like, he's not even beating him. But based on the leverage, how this corner is feeling this, and him just working to the outside of the leverage after the hips are committed, like, I can lead to this receiver and we can get something out of here. And he trusts his receiver to have speed, and that placement is excellent. It's somewhere that only the receiver can go out and get it, which I really enjoy. But again, safety blitz. So now we have no safety help over the top. To trust your receiver to win with that kind of speed is awfully impressive and confident. That's just kind of what we should expect from him. And it's just such a fun play. Let me go ahead and get that end zone angle for you. Arch feels the safety pressure, sees that one-on-one, steps into it, stays tall through the throw, nice spiral, and again, only where that receiver can get it. Some of these deep balls, man, look really good. Moving to the Arkansas game, and another game I wanted to show late in the season, has a good game. There's some legit NFL talent on this defense, whether it's Quincy Rhodes, the edge rusher who went back to school, or Julian Neal, who ended up being early day 3 cornerback. It's already all exited my mind after how much draft coverage we did, but this is one of my favorite plays that we'll show. Is again another example of pressure in your face. So faking the screen, going to go do that deep shot. Pockets collapsing everywhere around him. He's got to find that crease, but keep his eyes downfield if he wants to hit the deep shot. Here we go. Like, this is a theoretically clean shot on Arch, and he's not super big, but he's around 220-ish at 6'4". Plays stronger than you'd expect. I was a little surprised when I saw his listed weight because I was like, he plays a little bigger than that, but sheds off the sack attempt. And instead of just taking off downfield, he's like, nope, I'm going to keep my eyes downfield. I'm staying tall. Not something I see a lot from him, but I like here is that he resets his feet after that sack pressure. So I want you to watch that as he steps up. So we're going to go here, roll it, fake the screen. There's that pressure, staying up, resets those feet, and then just launches it. And then he feels the receiver, easy, deep shot, touchdown. I imagine the secondary gets all jumbled up because, they see hands get on Arch. Maybe they're like, oh, it's about to be a sack, or he's about to take off and run. But he's always keeping his eyes downfield. It's something I really appreciate about him, is that takes a lot of composure and maturity from a pretty inexperienced quarterback, especially when you feel that contact from a defender. But he just lets it rip, gets it over the top of that corner. He's got some legit deep ball placement. This isn't going to look like much at first, but I wanted to show it. We got 2 vertical routes from the number 2 and 3 receiver. Sorry, 2 and 3 receiver from the field side. And you're not going to think much of it. You're going to think, hey, maybe the safety is just, out of position, which technically, yes. But I'm going to show you the end zone angle as well to show you the importance of this. So safety bites on that number 3 receiver, even though this safety is also carrying the number 3 receiver. Suddenly that number 2 guy is wide open on a busted coverage. And you're like, okay, why are you showing me, it's an okay throw deep, but why are you showing me this? Doesn't show me much about Arch. We're going to see some eye discipline from him, which I appreciate. So as we roll this, from the bottom of the screen, we have that safety that, bites here, and then that other safety that carries the number 3 here. And I want you to watch where Arch's eyes are to hold that safety. So he's just like eyes. Try and stay neutral, maybe feign a little that way. Start peeking at that number 3 receiver, right here. This is where that safety bites. Not number 14, but behind the screen. He's like, all right, I see Arch looking at that number 3. That's where I'm bailing on. And then you can see turns his head to number 2, rips it, touchdown. Little subtle thing. I noticed it on film, and I was just like, why am I going to show this, very easy touchdown? But it is that little bit of quarterback that too many quarterbacks stare down their receiver that they want to throw to. In this instance, you got to look off that safety to open him up, and he does a nice job of that. I think that's a good example of, some nice anticipation in throwing windows and how much better Arch was seeing the field later in the season. But at the same time, one of his mechanical things that I think we need to work on a bit for him to be a more polished quarterback. So here, we're just going to pay attention to the slot, right? He's going to run like one of these over routes, and we're going to throw it as soon as he passes number 19. So I think all of this is really nice, anticipating that throwing window as soon as he feels that window, because, based on the alignment from that defender, we're going to have this open window, and that's really nice, right? It's a little off target, and I want to show you why. As we roll this, you're going to see as he gets that throwing window, watch just how hard he tries to throw this. And that's one of my things where it's just like every ball with Arch feels like it's trying to throw it a million miles an hour. And he's got the arm to throw with velocity. But in a situation like this, I know it's a tighter window and maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit, but when your throwing effort's so labored in situations like this, it can impact the accuracy. And at the NFL level with these windows, you got to be a little bit more accurate. This is nitpicky. We'll talk about some other mechanical issues, but it does feel like a lot in the intermediate throws and stuff like that. He's just trying to rip fastballs out there. Sometimes we need a bit more layups when it's not deep shots. Like he can layer it on those deep shots. Now we need to find some more mechanical soundness in his mechanics to increase some of that velocity without him having to, put all of his effort into it. This is a pretty similar situation to that early touchdown we showed against Vanderbilt, where we're going to have just this quick slant glance to this side of the screen. But Arch's, despite less pressure here, Arch's delivery feels way more rushed. It's another of those examples of just trying to fire everything like a fastball. So as we go here, flips his hips, and then he's just not even setting his feet really before he's winding up to throw. Like he's uncorking this, like hands off the ball right there before his feet are even truly set. Like he's still in the process of setting those feet, leads to some wild inaccuracies. These are some of the mechanics things I'm talking about. Like just set your feet a bit more. Like he's still like trying to figure out his stance, like as he's throwing it. And then we just don't have, the right kind of place in here, because that's a wide open touchdown. We're just rushing the process a little bit. I'm really curious to watch Arch as a runner. It's so fascinating because, he is a more dense frame. He's powerful, but what I liked here is his vision and agility to read. This is a tough run as a quarterback, but we got a puller here, cut off the puller, feel the leverage on this block, cut off that. So we're cutting there. And then, we could cut here, but this defender is going to win inside, probably try and corral you, just cut north-south, get the touchdown. He's got a little more wiggle as a runner than I was expecting. Where you can have some, more designed run plays. And I know that's primarily what he was used at during the Quinn Ewers era, when he was just kind of this like change of pace, running quarterback. But it's nice to know that he still has this in his bag. And that's some really legit vision as a quarterback. This is where we get into some like Caleb Williams, Kyler stuff, which I don't always love. I don't know how great it is to evaluate a quarterback in their whole scope beyond just YouTube highlights, but this is impressive. I did want to show it. Like, feels the pressure. I believe that's Quincy Rhodes right there. Escapes that, navigates it. Like he does get hit a little bit, but then gets his eyes back downfield, keeps scrambling. Maybe a little bit of an ill-advised throw, but that window is ridiculous to fit that ball, because he could be in such like significantly bigger trouble here with that throwing window if that corner is a bit more aware of it. But hey, man, like I got to give him a little credit for it. I don't know how I evaluate this as a prospect other than like he's got legit escapability. The throw almost feels like dumb luck, but the off-script playmaking is at least there. Another nice deep shot from Arch here. I love you just staying in that pocket. Just watch him step up. When he's stepping into throws, man, he can throw it with real zip that doesn't look that labored, and the deep ball looks really good. I think my only issue here is the wide receiver tracks it a little late and kind of loses sight because he ends up catching it like right here, and I'll show the end zone angle. But I think if he tracks this early on after the throw, he can get under it, and it's probably a touchdown. Watch it from the end zone angle. Just great delivery loft. Yeah. You could see from the other angle that he turns his head a little late and has to get under that. But like if he catches this a little more comfortably and gets under it correctly, I mean, he's taking off for 6. But I do love the deep ball placement here. Moving on to the Georgia game, and I just got to mention, there's like a 5-6 play sequence where I just see drop, drop, drop. It gets crazy in this game. Like receivers were not doing Arch any favors. I think he gets a little rattled in this game, and I don't blame him. He's playing in between the hedges in one of the most hostile environments in all of college football. But it's worth noting the mental toughness thing. I wrote down on my notes as far as like when things aren't going well. He's a young kid. Like it just starts looking a little frazzled, and this is one of those games where I think I saw it a couple times where I'm just like, we need to work on some more composure, just get more reps. I think having played a whole year last year and coming back to play this year, I am much more hopeful that he's going to work on that composure, feel more comfortable because he's been in some of these situations before. But this is a good example of just not stepping into the throw, feet pointed away. We're seeing here, like, you can see where his feet are pointed, right? And I'm going to try and draw angles. I don't have like an exact ruler, but like rule of thumb-ish, feet should be pointed where you're throwing, right? Feet are pointed here, ball's trying to go here. And that's a recipe for disaster, right? It's just, it's way too behind the receiver. Believe he ends up catching it, but it's just not a good throw. And the other thing about his mechanical issues here, because he's throwing like this, all of his momentum on that foot is going straight down instead of pushing and going this way. He's kind of just like planting on that foot straight down instead of this way. That messes with the velocity and accuracy. And this is probably a textbook example of some of the mechanical issues I see consistently with Arch. It's all in his lower body. We just really need to get those feet pointed right because he has the time. This is a very clean pocket. In NFL, this is about as clean as you're going to get. You don't need to rush this throw. He had time to step into hit. This guy's got plenty of space on his route going this way. We've got all of the space. Just don't need to rush this process here. I don't love the throwing mechanics here. Another example of those feet, man, like those feet got to be pointed the right way or bad throws are going to happen. You can see feet are pointed this way. He's trying to throw the ball this way. Ball's going to end up going closer to where his feet are pointed. So let me try it. If I just try and point, again, ball's trying to go this way. Feet are like this way. I'm going to hold the arrow on the screen as we play this, see where the ball goes. I mean, yeah, look at where that arrow was pointed. Ball goes right there when we wanted more of a straighter on angle towards this ball carrier. That's one of the reasons why we have the feet pointed towards where we want the ball to go. And sometimes it feels like maybe Arch is just trying to point his feet where the receiver is as he throws. But I don't like that decision. This pocket may be a little muddier, but it's not that bad, especially from what we saw in that earlier game. Like, he can step into this throw a little bit or just take his time to get those feet set. Why are those feet pointed so far out this way when he's trying to get the ball this way? And as we roll that again, like, it goes right where that arrow is pointing instead of right where the receiver is, which is where the ball was trying to go. Got to point your feet. It's such a huge pet peeve of mine, and it keeps showing out on Arch's film. We need to really rep that this offseason. I'm very curious to see if that's something that they continue to work on. If I was a Texas fan, I imagine I was screaming at this play. And this is after all these drops have happened, after some of these really bad throws, including that interception in the last play. Like, he does a nice job escaping here, but brother, throw it away. Throw it away. You're backed up near your own goal line. You're not doing your punter any favors if you can't get out of this possession. Just again, sorry, can't remember it at the top of my head right now. But don't give your punter backed up, fewer yards in space to get a punt off. I don't understand the decision not just throw this one out. And yet, despite all of these issues I had in this game, despite how wrong everything's going, he still flashes plays like this one where you're going to see a layer. This corner does a great job trying to hide. We're going to throw into this window. This corner is going to vacate his zone and try and jump it. But Arch has great layering on this ball, knowing that guy's probably going to peel off of it. Get it to only where the receiver can get it. I love the layering on this throw. That's such a mature play in that window. Like, you have to get some loft on it, knowing that corner might, playing that flat, charge it and jump it. I've seen so many interceptions that way. And that's some real maturity. Like, I got to give him credit for that one. I mean, because the corner bites on it. That's only where the receiver can get it. I love plays like this, and this is still flashing in a game where everything else is going wrong. This is near the end of the game. I think this is a summary of like the things that we still need to work on, because we've shown you a lot of context and talked about a lot of context for this game. Lots of drops, lots of inaccurate passes, that interception, taking a bad sack. We're in the red zone. We need a big score here. We've got a clean pocket. I just want you to watch how his body language in the pocket here. Normally when you're getting in your drops, straight back, stand still, on your toes a little bit, but you don't want to like go up and down. But look at Arch. He's just hopping, 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 hopping. Pocket's not even that dirty. And then, he almost throws another interception because of it, because he's just like panicking. It feels like he's more just guessing in the pocket than he is feeling. Because, like, this is a pretty clean, man. Everything's getting picked up, and he's just bouncing, 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 and just he feels so uncomfortable, not trusting anything he's seeing, and like that's the sign of it's probably the most clips we've shown of any prospect or any player throughout the history of this channel. But I really did want to dive into the discourse about this guy because, man, even I personally had an existential crisis watching some of this tape. Like, man, is he really it? But then when he is settled down, and I'll give him the grace because he hasn't played a lot of college football and he played at a lower level of high school football. I wanted to give him some grace as far as some of these like things that we need to work on. And the good news is everything that is an issue is totally fixable. And he still has a hell of an arm. He's mobile. He's a plus athlete. He can throw with anticipation. He's got, a quick release. There's a lot I like. Before I'm willing to say that he's going to be the number 1 overall pick, though, I need to see those leaps and bounds. And, as much as I like some of the stuff schematically that Texas runs, I do get worried about how they develop quarterbacks there, just because of the funky offense. And I watched Quinn Ewers and felt like he didn't take a big step forward throughout his college career. So I'm a little nervous. I still think he's a first-round quarterback just because of the talent and just, I think he is wired the right way to succeed. But I do need to see a lot more if I'm going to put him at the number 1 pick. But I do think he's better than people think. People think he sucks. I did not get that impression after watching him. So I hope you felt the same way too. Let me know in the comments what you think about Arch. Very curious for your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. And again, if you're not subscribed, made it all the way to this episode, we do tons of stuff like this. So stay subscribed. We got plenty of ideas for this offseason. So stick around with us. Thank you so much for watching and all the support from our members. We'll see you later. Take care.